I got one.
Okay. Thank you. Back on record. Where's Mr. Bashara?
We're good.
Okay. No, but I want this after the 90 days. Okay. Kelly. You ready, Mr. Bishop?
I just wanted to review one thing, but I am ready, Your Honor.
Take your time. Mr. Ambrose, were we able to resolve the issue of the witness? Could we address that?
No, we have. I tried contacting her, I can't reach her.
Okay, very good. Okay. Are you still under oath, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
You may proceed.
Thank you. When we left off, Mr. Bashara,
Yes.
you were talking about your dissatisfaction with your attorneys, correct?
Yes.
And obviously, with your court's advice on recommending two lawyers to...
Your Honor, now come on. Come on, Your Honor. Don't get some digs in on me. What do you do?
All right, go ahead.
Why didn't you inform the court, or did you ever inform the court that you were dissatisfied?
I had a letter prepared. I showed it to, I'm quite sure it was Joe Bruce, and he felt that it probably wouldn't help at this point in time because it was, I'm quite sure it was Joe, it might have been Hank, but they said that at this point it was in the beginning to the middle of the trial.
What were the things that you were concerned about at the beginning and the middle of the trial?
Them not researching and...
Them being, you have to say, the attorneys or...
Oh, my attorneys did not, in my opinion, give the investigators people that I wanted them to follow and follow up on. Because, you know, to be honest with you, and Mrs. Diallo's comment about, you know, Mr. Bashara thought he was the smartest person in the room. Well, when it came to these things, I was the smartest person with the knowledge of different individuals.
Okay, and so with regard to some of these individuals, let's talk about them.
Sure.
You wanted Chief Hiller to be called as a witness.
Your Honor, may I refer to some notes, please?
Take your time.
Okay. I did want Chief Hiller to be called, absolutely.
And why did you want Chief Hiller to be called?
Well, contrary to Mr. Hiller's testimony yesterday, he had a huge grudge towards me. And it was very well known that
Well known by who?
by Dean Valenti,
Okay,
by my family and others that, and I think even police officers, that Chief Hiller did not like me.
Okay.
And it stemmed from several areas.
All right. And had Dean Valenti was another person you wanted to have called.
Absolutely.
And he had some knowledge of your interaction with Chief Hiller?
He did, with City of Grosse Pointe Park and Chief Hiller.
All right. Now, just briefly, as a short synopsis, what types of grudges did he have against you?
Well, the biggest one was he was the detective in regards to the false claim about me having inappropriate contact with my niece.
And that was in 1995?
93 or 94.
Okay. And at that point, you were never officially charged?
Absolutely not.
You passed a polygraph, correct?
2 times.
Okay. And that was completely dropped?
That's correct.
Okay.
And I think he held a grudge throughout that. The other areas he was upset about is that I supported Dean Valenti for judge in the park against the sitting judge, Carl Jarble. Sorry, Your Honor.
Oh, that's okay.
3 times I supported Dean. And Carl Jarble was a good friend of mine. But I thought he'd been holding that seat for some time, and it was time for a change. So I supported Dean. The mayor, the city manager, and the chief did not like the fact that I supported him.
All right. You were pretty active in the community.
Very active.
All right. And
which quite frankly goes to another one of my main concerns, is my community service record.
why is your community service record so important to you?
Well, this jury sat here and listened to Miss Lindsay and the prosecution hammer me and belittle me and blacken my eyes about being this sadist or this evil, dark person, when in fact many people that came up here said that I was a good guy, that I treated them fairly, that I told them to tell the truth, and yet the jury had a preconceived notion of me through, sorry fellas, through the media. This media did everything in their power, as fed by the prosecution and law enforcement, to disparage and to corrupt my case prior to me even coming to trial.
All right, now, and that's where your character was referenced.
It's huge. It was huge.
That's why you wanted to get it more details into your background in the community, correct? There was a part of it, yes, you were part of the Rotary, correct?
Absolutely, for 25 years.
All right.
22 years perfect attendance.
And at least a portion of that was brought out at trial, correct?
Well, Mike Carmody talked a little bit about it, and as did Kim Tower, but I really felt that there were some gaps there, that they could have brought a couple more people out. They could have brought the district governor, who asked me to be the assistant district governor in 2010. Now, there's 1,500 people in our district. I was one of,
You're talking about the Rotary District.
the Rotary District 6,400. I was one of 10 of 1,500 people chosen to be an assistant governor, which to me is a huge honor, which was the year after I was president. Okay. They could have brought Marcella Wilson, who I suggest. Marcella Wilson is the executive director of Matrix Human Services, and the £3 million challenge was directly affected her.
And what is the 300-pound?
$3 million challenge was my 2009 presidential project. Every president, Your Honor, has a project. And my project was to involve all the clubs in the district to gather £1 million each of books, food, and clothing. And I did so. We did so. It took us a year and a half. The next president kept it going. But we helped, Marcella Wilson, in a letter to me, to Judge Morrow at my sentencing, said that Mr. Bashara's efforts directly helped over 10,000 poor in Detroit.
Okay,
and that was important.
It was important because your character became an issue in the case? Is that...
Let me tell you, the first week after my wife's death, Dean Valenti said they are going to try to make an island of you. They are going to disparage your character and come at you. They meaning law enforcement and or the prosecution.
Okay.
People that are sworn to tell the truth, to do, to seek justice, did absolutely the opposite in my opinion. And I can get into it if you'd like me to. But
I would like to know why you felt that.
Well, I'll tell you a number of reasons. First of all, we have, and I don't know the number, the officers here could, Narduzzi could probably, Mr. Narduzzi could probably tell you how many officers Grosse Pointe Park has. Grosse Pointe Park, on the table there is the details of the investigation. It's an inch thick. And they could have very easily done this investigation, but within the first week, Miss Lindsay not only came in, but she took over. And she even admitted on her own testimony that Mr. Narduzzi...
She did testify now.
Well, in her examination, she did say that Mr. Narduzzi needed to put on his big girl panties and big boy panties, or whatever term she used, and get involved, or to step up. I believe that Lisa Lindsay took over this investigation, controlled every aspect of it, including as represented by today. You have two very qualified prosecutors. One is a lead prosecutor, I don't know which one, and here she is now taking over. And that's her prerogative, and I'm not going to question that. I'm simply pointing it out. That this article that came out in the paper about them having two false eyewitnesses, Your Honor, that was disparaging to me, and even my own sister said, Bob, that doesn't look good. I said, Laura, it's not true.
Well, let me ask a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking about not looking good. You made several interviews in the media yourself.
At the,
what?
Yep, yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Dateline, several requests for people to come forward. Do you think that you, and your lawyer, put your character in jeopardy by going to the public and making statements when you were a person of interest?
Your Honor, let me be absolutely...
Yes or no? Do you think that helped?
No, it did not. It hurt me.
But hold up.
I did it at the behest and at the direction of my attorney. Your Honor, I was in a state of... Let me explain this.
No, hold on.
Yes,
so you're
ma'am.
saying that the only reason that you did the Dateline interview is because, and other interviews, is because of your attorney, David Graham?
Yes, ma'am. The only reason. He said to me, they're doing the interview with or without you. He said, this is an opportunity for you to show the good side, your home, your awards, which were documented and shown, but at the same time, the use of the lifestyle and talking about all those things disparaged me. And I did not want to do any of those interviews. And he told me that it was the best thing for me to do. And quite frankly, my father was always my legal compass, if you will. Or if I had needed any advice, not just legal, but any advice, he was there for me. Well, he died 15 years prior to this. And I had really no one that I could turn to. All right, I became...
Well, Dean Valenti, he was a lawyer.
Well, and you know what? He advised me not to do those things.
But you didn't listen to him.
Because he said, you got to trust your attorney. That's what he told me. He wasn't a criminal attorney. He said, trust your attorney. He goes, I wouldn't do as many of those as you're doing. And eventually I stopped. I told David Grimm no more.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I think I was talking about Marcella Wilson.
Yes. Tell me about Marcella Wilson.
Well, I think I did.
Okay, he did. He told us about that, okay?
Yes.
So Dean Valenti would have known about your relationship with the...
Chief Teller.
Absolutely. I think the question was what aspects, and you wanted to know what aspects of Grosse Pointe Park why Chief Hiller had this, and Grosse Pointe Park had this grudge, and I believe why they targeted me. All right, why they named me as a suspect. And then because of the investigation involving my niece, because of the supporting supporting Dean Valenti for judge. And I think the number one thing was that the mayor had come to me and said to me 5 years prior that, Bob, you're renting to too many blacks and Albanians in our community. I'd like you to stop that. Grosse Pointe Park purchased a 5-unit building of mine with federal TIFA money for $300,000 in 2000, I'm going to say 6 or 7, and I'm not clear on the date, so I could be wrong, and let that property sit vacant. They had a movement of you.
Why did they let it? Why did they let it?
This is what I think that he's saying that they
Yes.
made him the person of interest.
Yes.
No, but this is speculation on his part, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. Go ahead, Mr. Ambrose.
Why was that important? Why do you think that was? They didn't want you renting to these people.
Well, because I rented to an individual, whether they were black, white, yellow. I tried to look at their character. I tried to look at references and rented to people. My rentals were not that expensive. The most was $700-800 a month. So these are low-income, hard-working people.
And you're saying that the city personnel didn't want you to do that.
Look at Grosse Pointe Park.
It was a question.
Yeah, and what was the question? I'm sorry.
And you're saying that the city personnel didn't want you to do that.
Absolutely not. From the mayor to the city manager to the police chief, they were all working against me. The city manager sicked the building inspector on me from 2008 to 2010.
And with regard to like violations of...
Absolutely.
Now, you had mentioned to me Diane Vanderberg.
Diane Vandenboom and Diane Lewis.
And who are those individuals?
Those are two ladies at the City of Grosse Pointe Park Building Department.
And had you asked your attorneys about calling these people?
I did, and they did not.
Okay.
And you believe that they would have supported your theory that the Grosse Pointe Park bureaucracy was out to get you?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I think that they would have been pressured to do that. Diane Vandenboom did retire, so she may have been more agreeable. Diane Lewis may still be there.
Okay.
But they would have supported, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, we talked a little bit about David Grimm.
We didn't talk a little bit. We talked a lot about it, okay?
I'd rather forget them, quite frankly.
Okay.
And there was an issue about lie detector tests.
Yes.
And you wanted maybe, and this relates to the venue issue, did you want to change the venue?
Oh, absolutely, I did.
Okay.
Did I want to change a venue? Yes. Yes, yeah, absolutely. I told my attorneys that there's no way I could get a fair trial in southeastern Michigan.
And why did you think that?
Well, simply because of the brood of vipers that we call the media, all right? And I hate to address you gentlemen and ladies like that, but quite frankly, all they have done is regurgitated what the police and prosecution have fed them.
All right, now, one of the things about the change of venue, was it out in public that you had failed?
Chief Hiller put it out within the same hour almost that I took the test on that Friday the 27th. Let me say very.
Well, and he put out there that you failed the lie detector test, correct?
He did.
All right, now
and that I was a person of interest.
Okay, and that's within a couple of days of James Bashara's body being...
Absolutely. And here's the thing.
And what was your state of mind during this period?
I was a mess. Okay. I was. In fact, Kim Tower said that I was in a fog, which is absolutely true. My only and main concern at that point were my children. All right, I felt terrible for Jane's family, and
when was this?
On the 25th, 6th, 7th, 8th of January 2012. This is within a week to 2 weeks after the murder. I was absolutely in a state of shock. I made decisions I shouldn't have made. I fully and absolutely cooperated with law enforcement. I came in when they asked me to. I gave a DNA sample. I should never have, and I was advised by Dean not to do the lie detector without taking an attorney. And I thought by taking an attorney, it would make me look guilty. That if I showed up in good faith to fully cooperate and do as they asked, that I would show them that I had absolutely nothing to do with my wife's murder.
Now, I'm going to ask this because I know Ms. Lindsay probably will. But when you say that you fully cooperated, that's not 100% true now, is it, Mr. Bashara?
I believe...
Well, no, I mean, with regard to
you have to be more
people
specific.
Outside of your marriage that you were involved with.
No, I was not honest with that, no.
Okay. Now, didn't you think that was... I mean, when they ask you a question about that, I mean, that's not fully cooperating if you don't tell them the truth there.
When they first told me... I'm sorry. When Detective Locke and Detective Olson from Detroit DPW came to my house and told me about my Jane's death, that they found her in her car and she was dead, I screamed out, "They killed my Jane." I started crying and I was upset. Their testimony was I showed no emotion, which absolutely affected, I think, this jury. And it was proven that I did by two people.
Hey, Mr. Bashara,
I'm sorry.
I asked you the question, and we got to be focused.
I'm sorry.
You know, when I asked the question
Thank
about...
you, Mr. Ambrose.
This is very stressful for me.
It's very important.
Yes.
Because the whole world wants to, or Southeast Michigan wants to know, why weren't you truthful in your conversations with the police about having these extramarital relationships?
And I'll tell you, because
Please.
they said, I'm sorry, the police asked me, were you having an affair?
Okay.
That was, I'm quite sure, again, my mind was a mush, and I said no. And the reason is because in my mind it wasn't an affair.
You understand that a good portion of society may not understand.
I don't know about the good portions. I know what I thought.
Rephrase
What was in my mind. So
it was an improper question.
Okay. In your mind, it wasn't an affair.
No, it was not, and that's why when
What was it? A situation?
No, it was a polyamorous relationship.
Okay.
And what exactly is a polyamorous relationship?
That's where you have relationships with more than one individual. I had what I considered a very sincere understanding with Jane. She did not say, "What are you doing?" and "I want you to go out and you know, a lot of no. Let me back up. She did not say, "I want you to go out and have, you know, go out and find sex or go get hookers or do anything like that." Absolutely not. She said, "Do what you need to do to take care of yourself," and gave me the leeway and the freedom to do that. I never, at one point, deflected from my love and my concern for her. So I want to make that clear. When I talked to the police, to answer your question, I tried to be as truthful as I could. I did not want to involve Rachel Gillette, who I felt was an innocent bystander of this tragedy, as quite frankly was I, all right? And I didn't want to bring her into the mix. I told her.
No, wait a minute. Now, you're saying that this was not an affair. Is that correct?
It what?
You and Rachel Gillette was not an affair, right?
I didn't consider it an affair, no. No.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You brought Rachel Gillette into your marital bed and had sex with her. That's what she testified. Do you remember that?
I do. One time.
One time.
Okay.
You helped her to pay for her son or her child's wedding.
Her daughter.
Her daughter's wedding.
Yes.
You were photographed at the wedding and providing, I want to say, was it $7,000 support?
I allowed her to, no, I did not give her $7,000. I paid her for work she did and gave her the opportunity to earn the money.
Excuse me?
Well, I want to make it clear.
Of course. The ring that was an heirloom you gave to her from your family?
Yes.
Your father...
It was given to me.
Right.
Right.
But we're talking about this was not an affair, right?
I didn't consider it to be an affair, no.
What more would you have to do to make it an affair?
Ma'am.
No, judge, okay?
Excuse me, Judge, Your Honor, excuse
Okay.
me, I'm sorry.
Now go ahead.
I'm sorry.
All right.
All right.
What would you
The
define
absolute basis of that relationship was as a master-slave.
Okay.
And every time that we went anywhere, that was always things were brought for us to interact in that regard.
But that may have been so the titles that were given, like honey or love, but you were having, what do you define an affair? You were having a relationship outside your marriage. And when asked about it, you said you weren't. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
And that's just the point that I wanted to make. I mean, because it was going to be brought out by the prosecution, and your testimony is you didn't actually consider it as being, it wasn't was it considered a sexual relationship or not?
I didn't consider it that, no. I considered it a master-slave relationship in the lifestyle.
Did you have sex with?
We engaged in physical contact, yes ma'am. Okay. But at the time that I gave the statements to the police, I also said to Rachel, fully cooperate. All right, I didn't, and by the way, for the record, I did not tell her to erase the profile. She did that on her own. And she testified to that in the preliminary exam, and then it testified to something different at trial. And I asked my attorneys to ask her that, and they did not ask her that a second time.
About erasing the profile?
About erasing the profile. That was not...
She had said that at the preliminary exam, and then she contradicted
that she did. Absolutely, she did. She wanted to save her blogs, and she said, don't erase it, let me do it, I want to save some things on it. And I said, it's up to you, do what you want. I told her to fully cooperate. Within a week, she offered to give me back those 2 pieces of jewelry. And I told her, no, you keep them. They were my gifts to you. You keep them.
Go ahead, Cal.
All right. I want to talk about your discussions with the attorneys for changing venue.
Yes.
Okay. And one of the things that why you wanted that was because it was out in the public that you had failed a lie detector test. Is that
Yes.
accurate? Okay. And when you were sitting, well, and what kind of conversations did you have with your attorneys regarding change of venue?
Okay, now, you're talking about with Mr. Grimm?
No.
Or you're talking about my Diallo and McCarthy?
Diallo and McCarthy.
Okay.
Yeah, what kind of conversations?
Well, we had, I was shut down pretty much right away.
Shut down and what?
They told me, no, we're not doing it. The judge will not grant change of venue. They didn't even motion it. They assumed that you would not accept it, and I absolutely listened and discussed when Ms. Diallo, no disrespect to you, Your Honor, said that Bob Bashara wanted to be in Wayne County in Judge Evans' courtroom. I didn't know you from Adam. We could have walked by each other in the street, and I wouldn't know who you were. And so I had no desire to be in Wayne County or southeastern Michigan. I expressed that, and I was shut down. Several times I was shut down saying, the judge won't allow it, we're not even going there.
And the reason why you wanted out of this area was what?
Because of the pollution and the poisoning of the people of the region by law enforcement and through the media.
Now, you sat through the jury selection process, correct?
Pardon me?
You sat through the jury selection process, correct?
I did.
Now, were you given an advance review of any of the jury questionnaires?
No, I did not. I did not see any of them. I was able to read a couple.
What he had as far as whether he had advance, they hired a jury consulting company.
I'll allow it limited. Go ahead.
All right. I was shown while you were doing voir dire, and I turned around and I asked Mr. McCarthy who that gentleman was behind me, and he said he's our jury consultant. And it was amazing to me, and now I'm even more amazed that we had a jury consultant, as Miss Lindsay just pointed out, that was assigned, and that this voir dire and jury selection process was allowed to happen in light of those questionnaires.
Okay,
Now,
you're concerned about the questionnaires with what?
the purpose of the questionnaires was to weed out any bias prior to voir dire,
Okay,
and that wasn't done.
Okay, so did anybody that you're aware of express a bias in your favor?
I don't think there was any, no.
Okay, and how about against you?
A good portion, probably 60% of those, most of that were asked by the judge through her process, said they'd already formed an opinion and it was against the defendant. And the judge even in amazement said, you haven't heard a lick of evidence, how can you form an opinion? Because of what I heard in the media. So, and if I may, Your Honor,
Of course.
my thought on hindsight would have been to keep everyone out in the hall, bring them in one at a time, question them. If they pass, put them in the jury room, and just keep doing that until you have a jury room full. Then you bring them out for their peremptory challenges, do the peremptory challenges, and let those that's dismissed leave, and the other ones go back in and start again.
Now, the reason why...
And you came up with that idea yourself. You think that would have been the best way to do it?
I think that would have been you had 50 members of that pool that sat there and listened to the other members say, I think he's guilty, I think he's guilty, I think he's guilty, time and again. I think that absolutely prejudiced this jury.
Okay.
And I asked Mr. McCarthy and Ms. Diallo to see the questionnaires of the jurors that were selected, and they did not provide those to me.
Okay.
I still don't have them. I still would like to see them. Do you have the questionnaires, Mr. Ambrose?
I had sent a letter. Did you receive a letter from me?
Oh, this is we're not going to do this. You gonna about your correspondence and etc. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry.
The bottom line is you've never seen those questionnaires.
I have not looked at a questionnaire other than what I did at the table for a brief moment.
Okay. Now, another area of your concern about the attorneys and their ineffectiveness, was part of it the investigation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of it was that
Did you think they had enough time to investigate the case?
well, based on all the evidence that was allegedly out there, and I didn't see all the evidence. I wanted to see as much as I could.
My question was, did you think that they were given enough time?
No, I don't. I don't think that they were given enough time, and I definitely don't think the attorneys, and I don't think the investigators were given nearly enough time as they said. And on top of that, I know those investigators didn't investigate leads that I suggested to them, that they only investigated what the attorneys of record told them to, which wasn't half of what I recommended.
Do you recall when...
Wait a minute now. You indicated that you thought that there was a difference in what you wanted the investigators to do and what they actually did. Is that correct?
There were people, I have a list of people here, in fact I read several of them, and I can continue, of people that I felt should have been called that weren't, or should have been talked to that weren't.
Okay, very good. Now, second of all, you indicated that the investigators basically said that they were only going to investigate the people that the attorney said to look at, not the people you wanted.
Well, I gave them a number of names.
Is that what they told you? Did they say that, or did you just come up with that?
They didn't say that until yesterday in their in Hank and his testimony and
so
Joe.
So when you asked them, and when they came to visit you to interview someone, did they ever indicate to you that, well, I don't have the time or the resources to do it, I have to just interview the people that the lawyer said?
And to answer that question, Joe Bruce said he was going to come see me once a week. He came twice and stopped coming because he was stopped doing his job because he wasn't being paid, unbeknownst to me.
Oh, okay.
He didn't come to me and say, I'm not being paid, I'm not coming around. I didn't find that out till after the trial.
But the lawyer still came and visited you weekly, is that correct?
Not at the end, Mrs. Diallo
No, not
stopped.
at the end, I ain't talking about the end, I'm talking about from the very inception, from March until forward, did they come visit you?
Yes, they did.
Every week?
No, not every week. Several weeks would go by sometimes. At one point, 3 weeks went by, I didn't hear from them.
But you would see them monthly?
I was seeing them monthly.
Okay, very good, go ahead.
When did you mentioned about...
Oh, well, let me ask this. How many times you talked to them on the phone?
My attorneys
Yeah.
on the phone?
Yeah, like make collect calls?
No, I didn't talk to them, I don't think, at all on the phone.
Okay, good.
Not one, to my recollection, not one time.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry. Yes, I did talk to Mr. McCarthy. I called him January 8th, and I asked
2000 what?
2015.
Okay, now, we're talking about during the representation.
No, well, he's still representing me at that point. I hadn't been sentenced. And I asked him to help me with those motions. And he said, absolutely, I'm not helping you. I have no interest in helping you.
But prior to that, your testimony is you never talked to your attorneys on the phone.
I do not recall ever talking to them on the phone, yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
To the best-
And
to
that
the-
being Lillian Diallo and and Michael McCarthy.
To the best of my recollection, that's correct. I did not talk to them on the phone.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, at some point, Ms. Diallo stopped visiting with you, is that accurate?
She did.
And when was that?
Probably 3/4 of the way through the trial.
Which would have been when?
Probably trial ended in December. I'm going to say the middle to the end of middle of November. She stopped seeing me,
Okay.
and I have
Now, you wanted to communicate certain things to her, right?
absolutely.
And what types of things would you want to...
Well, I wanted, there was a number of questions I had for witnesses. This is a big part of this dissatisfaction, is I asked them, I sat right there, I asked both of my attorneys a number of times to ask, I actually prepared a list for each witness that was going to be called on questions I felt they should ask. When they didn't ask those questions, I pointed it out to them. I said, you didn't ask this, or you didn't ask that. And they said to me repeatedly that we're not going to ask questions that you feel you need answered if we don't know what the answers are ahead of time. And that floored me. It's like, well, how are you going to know the answers to something? You can't know what someone's going to say unless you're in their head. They wanted to be certain that the answers weren't going to hurt me. Well, I want the truth to come out, good, bad, or indifferent. I want the truth to be told,
All right,
and it wasn't.
And one of the things that you had mentioned is the attorneys told you that they didn't have the answers prior to.
They didn't have what?
They didn't have the answers to the questions that you wanted.
That's correct.
And do you think that's because of the lack of investigation?
It could have been.
Okay, that
I would think so, yes.
maybe Mr. Glaspie and Mr. Bruce hadn't had enough time to interview all these witnesses that were on the stand?
Or find out what we needed to find out, yes.
That list of who else, and got to be brief, Mr. Bashara, okay?
Yes.
You have a list of people that you wanted called at your trial. Who else is on there?
Kelly Roddy Fisher,
Who is Kelly Roddy Fisher?
I'll tell you, I'll name the person and then tell you real quickly who they are. She was the manager at Eagle Point, where Joe Gentz lived, and was the one evicting him. That would have been very key to be presented. Carrie Lewis, a member of our church for many years, worked with Jane and I on QuickBooks.
And she would have been able to support your character and your relationship with Jane.
That we loved each other very much. She was my treasurer. That Jane and I, when we chaired the auction in December of 2011, she was my treasurer.
Who else is on the list?
Armanda Armstrong, the one that I attended of mine, who I told to fully cooperate, that I put Power in the name for a while. Dennis Gentz, because
Dennis Gentz is Joseph Gentz's brother?
That's correct.
And why was he important for the trial?
Well, I felt he knew about his brother's situation. I felt there was information he knew that would be helpful to us.
And what type of information was Dennis Gentz going to give the jury?
Well, I don't know, because we didn't talk to him.
Okay.
I read his statement, and his statement said that his brother had issues and there was concern, and I think he knew a little more about Steve Vergona than was brought out.
Who else is on the list?
Liz Stone.
And who is Liz?
Liz Stone is very, very key, and I think this was a absolute faux pas by my attorneys. She was the one that saw me at 6:26 or 6:30 come back to the Hard Luck Lounge from my house. Okay, it's the, and if I may refer to a document, this document's already in record.
Your Honor, this has to be done, anything witnesses would have said has to be done by way of affidavit. He just can't come in and read a witness statement. The court indicated on the last hearing, before we started taking testimony, that Mr. Ambrose was supposed to come in with affidavit. He came in with not a single affidavit.
Let's leave it now. What is it for now?
He's talking about what people would have said when they testified.
Is that, okay, very good. You can't do that now. Let's move on to things.
This is a person that, it's Liz Stone that you wanted to call.
I wanted Liz Stone to be called, yes.
Okay. Who else that you wanted to call?
Okay, let me get back to my list here, hang on. Patty Matthews. Patty Matthews, they submitted her against my wishes. They what's the term when you bring in someone's testimony?
Brought it into the record?
They brought it into the record without her coming in and being cross-examined, and I felt it was important because there were some absolute lies in that testimony that would have, I think, made a big difference. And may I account to that? She said that
You can't say what she said.
in her statement.
You can't say that. You can't do that. Suspend.
Okay.
I don't want to know.
All right, fine.
No, Mr. Bashara, I'm
Yes.
answering your question. I don't want to know what's in her statement. I want to know what the truth is and why you think that area was not covered.
Patty Matthews was very important because of her relationship with Jane and I, showed that we loved each other, went to Hawaii with us, did a number of things with us.
Okay, so that would have supported your relationship with Jane.
Absolutely, there was no marital discourse, absolutely.
All right, who else?
Stuart Friedman was the attorney that we hired to represent me in the SEFRA hearing. And he specifically advised me that Miss Lindsay's involvement in that SEFRA
That's not appropriate. You can't say that.
Okay. Can I show you a letter that he...
No, you can't. It's procedurally how.
All right, I'm sorry. The neighbor of Joe Gentz, I thought he was important.
And why is that neighbor important?
Because he would clearly show, contrary to the prosecution's contention, that Joe Gentz was this mild-mannered simpleton who was taken advantage of by me. In actuality, he was a very violent, a very angry man who had no control over his emotions and had a condition called sudden outbursts of violent behavior.
And that neighbor was Jeffrey Bush?
I'm not sure of his name because they never investigated him, as far as I know.
Well, then how do you know that all of this about the neighbor if you don't know his name?
Pardon me?
If you don't know the neighbor's name, how do you know this is what he was going to say?
Because I read the testimony from how did I know that? Let me think.
You want to take a lunch break?
No, I read it. I want
Because I got
to.
a docket to do. Listen, I got to take a lunch break. Let's
Oh.
come back at 1:30. I've got some people waiting outside. How much farther more, Mr. Ambrose? Just to get an idea.
Maybe another 15, 20 minutes.
Oh, that's it? You sure?
Yeah,
Okay, very good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
Them weirdo people, when they come in at 4:30, I'll knock them off right there. If they hear her, let's do it on where? We only have Oh, what did they do? They adjourned? Yeah, they run. 1:30. if she had a job and.
I'm gonna go grab where now.
Okay. Ready? Sir, are you ready? Oh, ready. You have to talk to